All right, looks like we are now live streaming on Facebook. So if you are there on Facebook, then I want to just say hello. I'm going to go ahead and get the webinar started. I'm just going to clear my screen a little bit here so that we don't end up with a lot of extra. Okay, all right. All right, here we go. All right, so we are now broadcasting both on Facebook and on Zoom. So I want to just welcome those of you who are here, who are joining in, both via Zoom and both via the Facebook Live. So welcome, welcome. This is, if you're on Facebook, you're in our Sovereignty by Design Facebook group, and I'm delighted that you're there. And if you're coming in on Zoom and you haven't become part of that Facebook group, I really encourage you to do that. Over time, I'm going to be adding more content. We're going to be doing some more interactive things in Sovereignty by Design. And so I want to invite you to participate in that. And also all of the replays for the different, the series that I've been doing on Resiliency by Design they're all in the Facebook group. So that's where they are if you want to find them, you know, if you're joining us sooner. Hi, Carolyn. So if you want to go ahead and just say hi in the chat. And if you're on Facebook, you can say hi in the comments. And I just want you to know, if you do have questions, you are welcome to be starting to, or comments, put them in the chat, put them in the comments. I think it's really great when there are more voices than just mine who are participating. And so please do go ahead and say hi. I know there's a bunch of you who are coming on here on Zoom. So do say hi in the chat. I wanted to talk just a little bit about human design and about sovereignty by design, because I was looking at some of the questions that all of you have put in as I have asked you to do that as you're coming into the Sovereignty by Design Facebook group. And some of them are really kind of specific to you. And if you want something like, you want to understand more about your design, or you want to understand how your individual's design can help you in your life, you know, I would recommend that you get a reading, you know, from me or from someone else, because that's really how you're going to know specifically for you. And you, as we go through these different trainings that I'm doing here, there will be aspects of your chart that get highlighted, and aspects of everybody's chart that gets highlighted. And so that'll give you some more knowledge about who you are and how human design can help you, but it doesn't substitute for having a reading. So I just want to say that. So I want to say hi to Gina, and hi to Meg. So Gina's coming in from Pennsylvania, and Meg's from Florida, and Alexander is just saying hello, and Paige is coming in. Hi, Paige. Courageous resilience will be the foundation of my talk. That's awesome. And Flavia, hi, Flavia, say, let us know where you're from. And Anastasia, hi, Anastasia, good to see you. Yeah, so go ahead. And also, when you're doing this, select the all panelists and attendees so other people can see you as well. Otherwise, I'm the only one who's going to see you. Hi, Flavia is coming in from New York. Yeah, good to have all of you tuning in. And Anastasia is coming in from New Mexico. Awesome. So yeah, so I wanted to just talk a little bit about human design and a little bit about sovereignty by design as we're gathering, and as a way to kind of create a context for what we're doing here. So human design really came into my life in a big way when I was kind of burned out. I mean, I was actually really healing from burnout, and was in a time of really a lot of reflection about where I was in my life and what had gone on. And, you know, despite all of the different things that I had accomplished, I still had a sense of, you know, not quite having hit the mark in my life, if that makes sense. I don't know if any of you ever felt this way, where, you know, you may have gotten good at doing certain things, but you still didn't quite feel like you were on purpose, or you didn't feel all the way like you were, bringing all of you or the right aspects of you to your life in a way that was bringing you that deep sense of satisfaction that maybe you desired. And that's kind of where I was, and I was healing from burnout. I had really kind of fried myself, and I had done that a number of times. And when I came across human design, I discovered I was a generator, a pure generator, and that I'm designed to respond. I was like, wow, okay. I had actually heard this a number of years before, and I had dismissed it because I thought, what do you mean? I initiate all the time. I've initiated my entire life. But it was a big um, invitation, if you will, a big invitation for me to consider how I engage with life and to experiment. One of the things I love about Ra, who was the man who received the system and then developed it initially, is that he said, look, human design is only for a small portion of the population. Okay, it is not for everyone. It's going to be for the people that resonate with it, and for those it's right for, it's going to be really right for them. But I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I really, offering this to you and inviting you to experiment and see how it works in your life. See if it makes a difference. See if it makes your life go easier. If it makes you happier, if it gives you more energy, if it gives you more direction. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to give this thing a try. And what I discovered was a few things. One is that I had things to respond to pretty much immediately in my life. Sometimes I hear generators say, oh, I keep waiting for something to respond to. If you're in that camp, then I think you're probably not really understanding what it means to respond, because just take a look at your email, what comes into your inbox, there's a lot of things that you can respond to that are in your inbox, or, when you're on Facebook, there's tons of things that you can respond to, or people say things to you all the time that you get to respond to. So you're constantly in a state of response. But what's different about that is that when you respond, you take the time to actually kind of tune in and go, how does that feel for me? Is that something that I want to move forward with? Is it something that I want to engage with, or is it something that's not right for me? And for generators, our authority is our sacral, and our sacral just kind of goes, or or and there's more to it than that. I do have a whole video training on decision making that's inside my human design membership site, which I will share that URL for you, so that you can join that if you want. It's free. I mean, there's multiple levels, but there is a free level that you can join at, and you can watch that whole piece about decision making. But what happened for me is that I started to engage with life in a really different way. And I then looked back over the course of my life, and I realized I had responded a lot to a lot of really important life decisions that I had made, even though I had thought about that I was initiating them. So for me, human design is about how do we make the right decisions for us? How do we determine if it's the right timing? Because timing is everything. Because you can say one thing on one day and it goes absolutely nowhere. And you can say the same thing on another day and lots of people will respond to it in a very positive way. It's kind of uncanny how that happens. So timing is super important. And so human design can teach you a lot about that. It can teach you the right way to make decisions. It can teach you how you're designed to dance with life. Like I said, mine is to respond. All generators are designed to respond, whether you're a manifesting generator or a pure generator. Only manifestors are designed to initiate. Projectors are designed to be invited, to be recognized and invited in order to participate. And reflectors are really tuning in over a moon cycle to see what feels right to them in terms of the decisions they're going to make in their life and how they're going to dance with the opportunities that come to them. So we're all designed differently. And so human design is a system that can teach us all of these different elements. And those are kind of the core piece, what your type is, your strategy, and your authority. Those are the foundational pieces that you want to know. So when I'm finished with this series on resiliency by design, so I'm going to do the two gates of the Spleen Center, the 48 and the 44 today. And then I'll do the remaining two that we haven't talked about in this series yet, which are the 18 and the 34. I think it's the 34. And so we'll do those. We've already talked about the 28, which was actually the very first in this series. But then I'm going to start going through and talking about the type and strategy and authority, because those are the pieces that you really need to have down on the foundation. And I'm going to talk about those in relation to sovereignty in particular, although I'm sure I'll talk about resiliency as well. And so sovereignty, in my view, I've been working with sovereignty personally for over 20 years. It's been 22 years now, and with clients for about 15 years. And for me, sovereignty is really about knowing yourself deeply, understanding what's going on in your inner landscape, understanding what your parts are, if you will. The aspects of who you are includes your inner child, but it includes other parts of you as well. And what their needs are, what their desires are, what their fears are, how you can support them, and how you can get all of you integrated and aligned so that you're working in harmony from the inside rather than feeling like you're in conflict with yourself. Okay, so that's one piece on the inside. And then the other is to know what your superpowers are according to human design. When you know what your superpowers are, you know how to take those and act in the world in a way that's really effective. And when you know how to use right timing, which is one of the things that human design will teach you, then you'll be able to know when to take action about different things that you're interested in, or when not to take action. And that way you can really preserve your energy. So we become sovereign not to be isolated and alone and independent and autonomous, which is the way some people think about sovereignty. Yes, we are in command of our own inner landscape, and we have good boundaries, and we're not codependent, right? But we're also interdependent. We know that we're in the world with other people. We know that we're working with, the larger flow of life that is constantly flowing energy to and through us. And so when we're working with that flow of life, then we're really buoyed by the cosmic forces, if you will, that are moving through our solar system and through our planet. And so we're not sovereign in the sense of, like I said, of being isolated, being independent and not caring about other people, or not in touch with spirit, but actually realizing that we are a co-creator with all of those different elements, with other people, and with the larger flow of life. And so sovereignty is about being able to really have that sense of command of your own inner landscape, so that you can then really be in a dynamic relationship with what's happening around you. You can be in a response mode rather than in a reactive mode. You can tap into your creativity. You can allow downloads to come to you from spirit or from your inner being. You can be available for whatever kind of the needs of the world, if you will. I mean, I think part of being sovereign, for example, is really waking up to climate change and saying, okay, what are we going to do with climate change? Because being sovereign also means that we are paying attention to the well-being of our planet, to the companion species that we have here on the planet, all of the animals and the birds and the fish and all of the life forms, the plant kingdom, what's going on in our oceans, and so on, right? We're really tapped into all of that as well. So for me, that's what sovereignty is all about. And human design is a really potent tool that can help us to manifest our potential in all of those areas. Okay, I'm going to take a big breath and a sip of water. Okay, thanks everybody for saying hi. So if you've just joined us more recently, please do go ahead and say hi in the chat bar, because I see more of you have come online. Before I go into the slides today, I actually want to ask you to start putting into the chat. So we're talking about the gate 48, which it has the fear of not knowing enough. And then the gate 44, which is the fear of the past. And we're going to talk about the awakened aspects of those gates, which are part of what help us to move out of fear. But I would love it if you're willing to be vulnerable, to just share a little bit about what you feel you might be having fear about right now. I mean, it would be kind of odd if you weren't experiencing any fear right now, given this pandemic that we've been in. This is a global situation. And then also, you know, the economic fallout that I'm sure some of you have either lost jobs or you know people who've lost jobs, you know, what that might be about. So I think just to make this interactive, it would be really great if you could participate in that way. I would love to hear from you. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started with some slides here. Okay. All right. Okay. So this is, I think this is part 6 in our series of Resiliency by Design. And today we're talking about gates 48 and 44, which are part of the Spleen Center. Here again is the human design mandala, which is that shows us all of the aspects of the mandala and really how beautiful it is and where all the different parts come from. And then we're going to be talking about the Spleen Center today. The Spleen Center is down here. The spleen, it's not one of the motors in the chart, so it doesn't have the kind of power that the motors have. But the keynotes for the spleen have to do with survival, instinctive intuition, fear, time, and the immune system. And in particular today, we're going to be talking about the gate 48, which is right here on the Spleen Center, and the gate 44. And so you can see both of these are coming off of the spleen. Now, let me just remind you that all of the gates on the Spleen Center are considered fear gates. This is all of them. We've already talked about the gate 28. Okay, and we've already talked about the 57. So next time we're going to talk about the 32 and the 18 and maybe the 50. Okay, so the reason that they're all considered fear gates is that this is the center for instinct. Okay, so it's kind of an instinctual intuition. And fear is a part of instinct, right? If you just think about it, fear is part of what keeps us alive, right? Fear is something that back before our modern times, certainly before the industrial age and the technological age, where we really did have predators, or we really did have things that were threatening our lives. And it is also the energy that can come in when you're in a, potentially going to see a car crash. For example, that energy can come in. You can have this intuition that comes in. It's what we consider that kind of fight or flight energy. And it has its place. It doesn't have a ton of place in our technological society unless you're living in an environment that it has more potential danger in it, which some of us are, or if you're living in a part of the world where there's more potential danger. That absolutely is the reality for some people, so I don't want to act like it's not. But we don't have we don't have tigers, we don't have bears generally, that type of predator that's going on. Unfortunately, we have seen some situations in the news lately where there have been some police murders that are still going on. So that does happen. Sometimes people get killed in gang violence. So I don't want to say that that doesn't happen. But it's also the case that we want to be able to manage whatever that fear might be and not have us be running us in ways that are not helpful. Okay, so let's talk about the gate 48. I actually love this gate. This is a gate that I have defined in my chart, and it's in traditional human design. It's called depth or the well. This energy wants to go really deep with knowledge. I think of this as almost like the librarian, the librarian or the scholar or the researcher. It's excellent for research. And this is an energy that wants to know everything about something that's of interest, right? You get interested in something and you just, you go deep into it. And this can become wisdom when that kind of knowledge is added to life experience. In my view, wisdom isn't just knowledge. It's not just about researching something. It becomes a deeper knowing and a wisdom when it is connected with actually experiencing it to some degree. Taking something that you've learned through research and then going out and working it in your life. Now, this is the place where the fear can come in. And the fear can come in of not knowing enough. Now, this can happen for you, whether you have this defined or whether you have it open in your chart. So whether it's colored in your chart or whether it's white, it tends to arise more for people who have it colored in, who maybe have identified more with it, what we call the lower aspect of the chart, or the shadow aspect of the chart, which is this fear of not knowing enough. And that may have been from somebody early in your life, sending you the message. This could have been a parent, it could have been a sibling, it could have been a teacher, it could have been kind of the community that you grew up in, that you really, you really have to know a lot. I've had some clients, for example, who grew up with family members who were doctors and lawyers and, really highly educated people. And they're not that kind of a person. That wasn't their life path to become really educated in that to kind of traditional sense, but they carry with them this kind of fear of not knowing enough, that they don't have enough degrees, or they don't have enough certifications. And that can get in the way of them moving forward in their life. It can block taking action. It can undermine your confidence. It can really fuel your procrastination in terms of moving forward in your life. But it can happen. This energy is something that we all have access to. If you have it defined in your chart, if it's colored in your chart, then you're going to have a more consistent, even fixed way of experiencing it. So you might feel it more in the kind of delight of research and how that helps you with your life experience, and that you actually take that research that you have and use it in your life, and it helps you develop wisdom, which is more of the awakened aspect. Or it could be that you're more identified with this more shadow aspect, where you're actually not clear about your ability. You question, you doubt yourself. And so that can happen whether it's defined or whether it's open. But if it's open, it'll tend to be something that kind of moves through you more rapidly, unless you've been heavily conditioned into that direction. So I would love to have those of you who are here online to go ahead and just say anything for you where you resonate with this, like, whether you resonate more with that more awakened aspect or more with the shadow aspect. And, I don't want this to think of like one is good and one is bad. It's more about what's going to serve you. Okay. It's more about what's going to serve you. And there are situations where the fear of not knowing enough is helpful. So let's say you were going to go, and I'll make this kind of extreme. Let's say you were going to go and climb Mount Everest. Okay. And you'd never climbed a high mountain before. And you might have the fear of not knowing enough. That would be a genuine fear, because you're going to go and do something that is a potentially life-threatening experience. And you are afraid that you don't know enough. And so you want to go and learn more about that. Okay. It's going to keep you from taking action until you've learned more. And what you want to watch is whether or not this is just a story that you're replaying in your mind. Let's say you've studied for 2 years and you've been training and climbing, mountains. You've climbed, Mount Rainier, for example. And, so you've been training, but you still have this fear of not knowing enough, right? So you want to notice when that fear of not knowing enough turns over into procrastination. right? Or if it's really undermining your confidence in a way that's not helpful, that's when you want to say, excuse me, you want to take a look at that and go, is that really what I need to be doing right now? Or can I find a way to actually add life experience to what I've been researching so that I can become wise about about what I'm really interested in? Because without that life experience, your understanding of something is only going to be so deep, right? You're only going to become so wise about it if you haven't made it real in some way in your life. Okay. So gate 44. So gate 44 in traditional human design is known as energy. It's kind of an interesting gate. So I focused on this piece around the past, but I do want to make a side note here, which is that gate 44 is also known as the energy that creates the opportunity for a change to be made. In traditional human design, it's kind of considered the energy for creating the right environment for the sale. Okay, because it's part of the channel of sales inside of the business circuit. So it also has that energy, and let's connect that now to the past. So the gate 44 knows what's important from the past. It helps the tribe. This is a tribal energy. It's in one of the tribal circuits. So it helps the collective, not the collective like the big collective, but the group understand what's of value from the past and what's not. And it can see patterns from the past that are helpful and that are unhelpful. Okay, so it does have an awareness of the past. And we do need to understand our past. You probably heard that saying that if we don't know our history, we'll be doomed to repeat it, right? So what we want to be able to do is understand our past, but not to be slaves to our past, not to be undermined by our past, not to be burdened by the past. We want to learn the lessons of the past. We want to be able to say, oh, this happened before. What led to that? Like, let's look at making a change around that. Like, we don't want to do that again. But it's not about being burdened by fear. So the fear of this gate is the fear of the past. And the part where it gets really negative is where it takes the fear of the past and it projects it into the future. Now, in my work with clients, over many years now, this is a very common thing that we do, okay, is that we have some kind of trauma or some kind of wounding from the past that hasn't fully been healed or hasn't been fully attended to, hasn't been given the attention that it needs. And so it's like a magnet. It's like a hot magnet that will then continue to attract our attention. A lot of times underneath our conscious awareness, what's happening subconsciously, but it'll attract our attention so much that we'll project the fear of that thing happening again into the future. So one of the things that you want to look at right now, if you're feeling fear in this COVID-19 environment, is to be looking at, and we'll go over this when we do the questions next, is there something from my past that's getting stimulated, right? That's rising to the surface? Because that's typically what happens, right? It's if whatever type of fear you might be having right now, chances are it's not just about right now. Chances are it's related to something that happened in your early life, or it happened in your epigenetics. Okay, it's something that happened in your ancestry, or something that happened in other lives that your soul has experienced, in which your soul has incarnated, and you're kind of connected to the energy of those other lives. Okay, so it can be from any of those sources, but the main thing is you want to be asking, is this real and relevant right now? Am I in present time, or am I experiencing something that I kind of go, yeah, all right, well, okay, that happened to me when I was 5, or that happened to me when I was 3, or something like that, or I'm not even sure where that came from, or I know that happened to my grandmother, Or I know that that happened to my family back when they lived somewhere else, right? And they were a refugee, for example, or they didn't have enough to eat or something like that, right? You know of something about your family history, but you don't have like a specific situation. But what you want to be able to do is bring yourself into present time. And this is part of that command of your inner landscape that I was talking about regarding sovereignty, right? Is you want to be able to have command so that you can be in present time and you can be aware if there are other energies that are coming in and pulling on you, and paying enough attention to them so that you can kind of sort out and unpack and realize, oh, that's not even really relevant in this situation. It's just an old energy. And then you want to be able to utilize the power of the 44 to go, well, what's important from that, right? Like, what's the value of that? What's helpful from that that I need to know? And then how can I release the rest, right? How can I let go of the rest? How do I make peace with that past so I can come fully into the present? Because what you don't want to do is allow the fear of the past to dominate your energy and to dominate your perspective. And it can be hard sometimes when you get caught in your own pattern, right? Because then you can't distinguish between, you can't discern between what's, you know, of the past and what's of the present, or what's a value of the past and what's not, right? Because you kind of get caught in that trauma, or you get caught in that wounding, or you get caught in that family story, right? That's still recycling. Like, you know, I've had clients who, for example, you know, their families either fled the Holocaust of World War II, or they had family members who died in the concentration camps. And so this is in their epigenetics, right? And so that's something that they have carried with them. But it is possible to be able to release the energy of that, particularly the more awareness that you have of it, and the more determined you are to become sovereign, so that you're not just run by that family legacy. All right, let's look at some questions that I have here. And I see you putting questions into the chat. Please keep, or comments that you have, keep putting those in there. I'd love to see those. We're going to come to those in a minute. And also, you have those of you who are on Facebook. I'll come over to Facebook Live in a couple of minutes and see what it is that you've been commenting. Okay, so you want to ask yourself, all right, because both of these energies, both of the 44 and of the 48, are energies that can hold you back, right? One holds you back because you are afraid that you don't know enough. And the other holds you back because you're afraid of experiencing something that happened in the past. Okay, it's like, uh-oh, I don't want that to happen again, right? So you want to be looking at, you know, what is holding me back, right? What am I afraid of, right? Can I get, you know, some texture to what it is that I'm afraid of? What do I think I need to know, right? What do I think I need to know? And then is that really something that I need to know? Or is it just something that is kind of, again, it's like, could be a family story that you're recycling? Or what's getting activated from my past that's stimulating my fear right now in the present? Okay. It's like just kind of feeling in, going inside and noticing where that fear is in your body, tuning into that place inside of you, taking some deep breaths. Those of you who have gotten my Clarity Breathwork ebook and audios, you can use that. Breathe for a little bit and then go inside and connect into the place in your body where you're feeling that fear, and saying, oh, what is really all about that? You know, what is that what is happening there? How can I bring some loving kindness, loving attention to that place in me, so that it doesn't have that kind of, it doesn't have the ability to colonize my current thinking, which is what it will do if that fear is just, you just let it run you. Is this a genuine concern, or something that I learned from someone, or something my fear has made up, right? Like, be real with yourself. Is this actually something I need to be concerned about? You know, if you're, if you're a generator or a manifesting generator, you can ask your sacral, like, is this something I really need to be afraid of? Mm-mm, mm-mm. Okay. Or, and then you can ask more questions if you get a yes, right? If you're a projector, you can talk this through with someone who you trust. who you will just listen and support you with high quality questions and high quality listening. They won't try to give you advice or make up your decision for you, but just really tuning in and seeing, and if you're a reflector, then you want to take the time to be tuning into this over time and seeing. If you're emotionally defined with any of the types, then you want to, I mean, obviously reflector isn't going to be emotionally defined, but any of the other types is you want to be asking yourself this question over time. For manifestors, you would be asking what the energy of whatever the motor is that's going to your throat, whether that's the will center, the emotional solar plexus, or whether it's coming from the root through the spleen. Then you'd be asking your intuition or your kind of creative will, or your emotional energy. Is this a genuine concern? Or is this something that I learned from someone, or something that my fear has made up? And then it's like, is part of me trying to hold me back to keep me safe? I mean, that's usually the way that this works, right? Is that there's some part of you, right? What I like to call a subpersonality. It's a part of you that broke off at a certain moment in time, typically because there was wounding or fear, or trauma. And it made a decision that it would be better to not fully engage with life in order to stay safe. Probably this isn't a new concept to you. And so if that's true, this is the part that you want to have that kind of inner dialogue with. You can do a dialogue process where you actually have that part in a chair, and you sit in the chair and you go back and forth, and you give voice to that part. You can do something like that, voice dialogue. You can write a voice dialogue with that part. Like I said, you can breathe, and you can go inside, and you can just ask, and you can listen and perceive. There's a lot of different ways that you can work with the part of you that's afraid, that's trying to hold you back. But the thing I want to emphasize here is that all of this is something that you can move through. And the energies generally in the spleen, the fear gates, the fear of those gates, is something that you can move through relatively easily if you make the decision to go ahead and do the thing anyway. Because it's not something that is actually threatening your life, even though it might feel like it's life-threatening. Of course, you want to discern, is it actually something that's genuinely threatening to me, right? Because you want to pay attention. If it is, pay attention. But if it's not, then, what then would be my action step, right? What then would be my action step? Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people running a lot of fear in all kinds of different directions, in the media, on Facebook, just running a lot of fear scenarios about what they think is happening. And I'm not here to say that there isn't some kind of disturbing things that are happening, because I believe that there are. And at the same time, we don't want our fear to control us and to take us over, because that's never going to be helpful. Okay. It's never going to be helpful if what we do is start acting out of fear. We want to be able to make that distinction. And we also want to be able to make the distinction between what's currently present and what might actually be dangerous in that, and what is fueling it from the past. Okay. And be able to let go of what's not helpful from the past, bring along what is helpful, either from our research, which is the gate 48, or from our understanding of the past, which is the gate 44, into the present moment to help inform us to know how to make the best decisions. Okay, so I wanted to give you this URL again. If you don't already have it, let me see if I can grab it. I want to put it in the chat. Come over to the chat. So this is where you can get videos of decision making and energy. And then I'm going to be adding some more to those as we go along as well. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. All right, and I'm going to put that URL there into the chat box so you can see that. And then the other thing I want to do, just hold on here for a second. I want to come over to, I'm going to bring up Facebook for myself as well. All right. and see. Okay, so hi Katayun and hi Kim. Go ahead and place any questions that you want. I can see you there on Facebook. I'm going to go ahead and be tuning in to any comments that you want to make or any questions that you have, anything that you want to share. That would be great. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read what you've been posting in here. Please do go ahead and add anything else that you want to say. Okay, so Paige says that I don't have enough pieces or know what order they go in for starting my business. So that's a fear that you have, Paige. Okay, got it. Right, that you don't have enough pieces or know what order they go in for starting your business. Well, I do want to say, you know, as a business coach, it is good to know what order to do things in, and I do actually recommend that that people get business training, because far too many people actually have had I've seen them go forward with, you know, thinking that they don't actually need to have any business training. And so the thing I want to say about that is because I've talked to you know, particularly people in the healing arts who have, you know, have this idea, well, I should just learn my modality, or it's true for accountants too, or lawyers or whatever, you know, I learned this skill set, right? And so then I should be able to just go out and hang my shingle and do that. And I'm like, well, yeah, but if you've never learned anything about business, why should you think you should be able to do business? So, and I, you know, I used to have people who come to me and they would be so kind of judgmental of themselves because they felt that there was something wrong with them, that they weren't able to, uh, you know, be successful in their business. And I'm like, well, why would you be successful if you don't have any training? So Paige, I have no idea how much training you've had. Maybe you're answering that down here. But I would actually, you know, if you want to make a comment in their page about kind of what's true for you or how much business training you've had, I could follow up on that a little bit more. And it's also true that I have had clients who really felt like they could not move forward if they didn't have more, you know, they just kind of kept taking class after class after class after class and they wouldn't move forward. So that's also true. Okay. Alexander says, I have that gate defined and more on the shadow side. Okay, Alexander, I hear you. And so Alexander, if there's anything that you would like to share, any support I can provide you with, I'm happy to do that. Okay, so just let me know kind of a little more texture about what that means for you. And if there's any place in there that you'd like some more support around. Okay, Mary says, okay, resonate completely with both and have it defined. Okay, great. Paige says, I'm working on balancing learning and action. I'm gathering and refining elements to have in place for launch momentum. Okay, yeah, that's good. Yes, it's good to balance learning and action, and it is good to have, you know, certain things under your belt, you know, certainly before you do a launch. Absolutely. Okay, Carolyn says, wanted to further understand the relevance of a planet assigned to a gate. I have gate 48 defined, both personality and design. By Saturn, it's okay, yeah, it's not by Saturn. What that means, Carolyn, is that Saturn is in the gate 48. Okay, that's what that means. Saturn, it means Saturn was in that gate when you were born and 88 days prior to when you were born. Okay. So I have a tendency to overstudy, always taking classes all my life. I do resonate with the procrastination of over-researching and never having enough information to finish writing my book. It took me 5 years to write my first book. I had to learn that getting the word out was the important part and getting over it, not having it be perfect. Yeah, so that is one. So here's the thing. So the importance of where it's located in your chart, Carolyn, is that Saturn is your life lesson. Okay, so that's your life lesson is where your Saturn is. So that means that your 48 is your life lesson. So as you embrace the lesson of your 48, right, then you're going to be able to experience the blessings of your Jupiter. So you can look at where your Jupiter is. Okay. But, Saturn is a teacher. Saturn is a taskmaster, which is actually a great, the 48 is a really great place for uh, for Saturn to be, because it is about kind of systematically learning how to do things, which is what the 48 loves to do. And you need to look at like allowing, like, well, just what you said, right, is that you have a tendency to overstudy, always taking more classes, feeling like you're never ready, feeling like you don't know if, like, writing a book is a classic place where that comes in, right? And I think I've had some of that also, certainly around writing a book, which I'm doing now. And but so it's a little bit of a mixed bag, right? It's a mixed bag. It's a little bit of a mixed blessing of how it can provide you with that energy to be able to do the kind of long-term work that you need to do in order to write a book, but you want to watch it if it's getting in your way. Okay, Gina says, hi Gina, the gate 48 is white and gate 44 is both black and red. I'm also a generator. Okay, and so Gina, did you have a question or a specific comment about that? That basically means the gate 48 is open in your chart, and it's defined, it's double defined in your chart, because if it's black and red, that means it shows up somewhere in your design, and somewhere in your personality, or somewhere in your conscious and somewhere in your subconscious. So it just depends on where it is in your chart. It does make it a major theme for you. Anytime you've got a gate showing up more than once in your chart, it makes it a big theme for you. Okay, Mary says, is it possible for you to talk about the design and personality boxes on the chart? I'm clueless. I get the symbols are astrological symbols, but I don't know how to equate how the numbers in the boxes relate to the chart. Okay, Mary, that's kind of a general question, and I'll see where we are. I'll come back to that, okay? I just want to see if, like, what's on topic here. Okay. All right. Alexander, I appreciate your offer to help. I think I have figured out to focus on just the next step instead of looking too far ahead that it gets overwhelming. Yeah, I welcome any suggestion that I can add to my tactic. So, Alexander, I'm assuming then you're talking about the 48. Could you just clarify that rather than the 44? And yes, focusing on the next step is great. Yes, gate 40, that's what I thought. Okay, so so the other thing is sometimes perfection, and I think Carolyn mentioned this, like perfectionism can get going in the 48, right? And that kind of feeds the I don't know enough, right? So you can look to see if you have any perfectionist streak in you. And if you have, let's think about this. No, it's not that. Yeah, so you can just look if there's any perfectionist streak in you around that, and to really have a mantra for yourself around done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. That's actually been a big one for me, is done is better than perfect. And it's just, and when I say done, I mean declare that it's done. Like if you're working on something, you're working on a project, there's a point at which you just have to declare that it's done. It's not that I have to know more in order to put that in there or whatever. It's just, it's going to be done. And I want to give an example of, so when I went to graduate school, I have a PhD in literatures and English with an emphasis in African American studies and women's and gender studies. And I got my PhD back in the early 90s. And when I was in graduate school, I was kind of horrified to learn that some crazy percentage, and I would have to look it up to see how accurate it is now, but it was like a crazy percentage, like 70% of people who had aimed to get a PhD in the humanities did not finish. that they became what's known as ABD, which is all but dissertation. So they had done all their classes, they'd had passed their exams, you know, they'd probably spent years and years, but they never finished their dissertation. So they never got their PhD. Okay. To me, that's horrifying that some large percentage of people got to that place. Well, that is a classic 48 issue, right? Can you see how that works, right? Because you take a person who loves to research, right? Why would you be getting a PhD if you didn't love the research? That's basically what you learn how to do. But then who's always in this mode of being like, I need to know more, I need to know more. And I had a classic situation happen with a roommate of mine that I had when I was in graduate school, who as soon as she kind of really got her topic and really wrote a bunch on it, a new idea would come in, or she'd read a new thing and she'd be like, oh, but I need to take account of that. And then she would stop what she was working on and she would turn and then start working on something else. And this had happened multiple times. And I just went, wow, look at that. And I remember something that my father told me. So I grew up in an academic family. My dad was a professor. That my dad said, just remember that getting a PhD is a way to a career. It's not a career. Because some people would actually make it a career, right? So just notice if there's any tendency for you around that. And just remember, done is better than perfect. I mean, you know, my dissertation, it was good, you know, and then I turned it into a book and I revised it and I changed it and I did all kinds of things to it, you know, and then even when the book was done, I was like, oh, well, the book could have had this or that or whatever, you know, it's like, no, it's done. And just know that whatever is done, you can always do another one, right? You can always do another project. And for those of you who are, you know, who are business owners, if you're doing anything online or you want to develop any content, if you're writing blogs, you know, a good way to get yourself through this. Like, I don't really know what you do, Alexander, so if you want to, you can give me some examples. But like for me, learning how to write a blog every single week, which I did when I was doing a lot of business coaching, I've written 270 blogs. Okay. You know, I just had to learn to be like, okay, it's 800 words, boom, it's done. It's better than perfect. Put it out there. Okay. And so there's things that you can do that can train you into that feeling of done is better than perfect. I mean, here, look, you know, doing these for me every week is kind of done is better than perfect. You know, it gets me to share some content with you. I love interacting with you. It challenges me to be like, okay, what do I want to say about these different elements that I'm sharing, right? And I have to get used to just doing it. And at this point in my career, it's pretty easy for me, but it wasn't always. You know, I really kind of had to condition myself into that. Okay, I hope that was helpful. All right, where were we? All right. Megumi, gate 48, defined, resonate with not knowing enough and tend to procrastinate on things. Okay, I hesitate to choose my career for so long and still cannot make up my mind. What is my next step? Oh, well, Megumi, I hope that what I just said was helpful to you, which is just take the next, and even what Alexander said was great, just take the next step. You know, just take the next step. Even if it's not the right step, it's better to do something than to do nothing. Okay, it's real, because whatever your next step is it'll give you information. It'll give you information where you're like, oh, that was great. I love that. You know, I'm going to do more of that. Or no, that didn't work so great. I don't want to do that again. Right? It's just information for you. So Paige says, I have a thing where I get $700 a month disability and have to create my own employment online, mostly since driving is no longer an option, while earning and working under that limit to keep the benefits for at least another year. Okay. Yeah, I hear you. That's challenging, living on $700 a month. Bless you. I hope it works out better. I mean, the good news, Paige, is that there is a lot of really good free content that's available for you now. Okay. Yeah, new to business, affording training is an issue. Yeah, well, like I said, there's a lot of really great free information online. So I would encourage you to, you know, to look for that. And you know what, I have a really good training that might be helpful for you, Paige. It's just like a one, I mean, I have a whole thing, but I think just have one webinar that's kind of about stages of business and what to do when. It addresses that question. If I can find it, I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll put it in the videos in the Sovereignty by Design. Um, and then you can check it out there. Okay, hopefully that'll be helpful. Okay, I want to just see over here what's happening on Facebook. So on Facebook, Janice says, I have both the 44 and the 48 defined. Love to go deep with research, but definitely subject to paralysis by analysis. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, and 44, a gift of seeing patterns. Perfect. Can you say more about the 44 being part of sales? Yeah, let me talk about that. So let me just say, I think sales, sales is great. And, here's the thing. I love this saying, which is no one likes to be sold to, but everybody likes to buy. Okay. No one likes to be sold to, but everyone likes to buy. So the 44 creates the conditions where someone wants to buy, but they're not trying to enroll you. So a lot of the free content that we see these days is kind of like 44 energy, because it's that, okay, I'm going to create the environment. I'm going to give you a taste of what it is that this program is that I have. And rather than doing hard sales and like stimulating your fear and telling you how you're going to miss out if you don't do it, and your business is going to fail or your partner's going to leave you or whatever it is, right? I hate that kind of sales stuff. It's really saying, this is how I feel I can support you, right? Okay, this information I think could help you thinking about things this way, understanding how, taking this perspective on looking at this information could help you. Like even just the webinar I was just talking about that I think could help Paige, right? Which is a free webinar. I did it many times. I mean, it was a talk that I did in many different situations. It was one of my signature talks. That's a kind of 44 energy, because what it's doing is saying, okay, I'm going to create the energy for the sale. I'm going to create the environment for the sale. And at the end, yes, I'm going to use the energy of the 26, which is the gate of sales. But I'm going to do it with integrity. I'm not going to try to, shame you or terrify you into sales. Okay. And at the end, I'm going to say, if this resonates for you, I invite you to join me, and I invite you to think about, what benefits you could get if you were to say yes. Okay. So then that's the 26. So that's the sales part, the inviting part. But the 44 is all of that other energy, which is creating the environment for that. So Janice, I hope that answered your question. I'd love to hear how that landed for you. We're almost out of time. Okay. Okay, Megumi is saying, I always hold back from past bad experiences, so it's hard to forgive or release my negative feeling. I use many different techniques like flowerances and gemstones, tapping. I'm learning to forgive with love. Yeah. The one thing that I'll say about that, Megumi, is I don't know what modalities you're using. You're welcome to go and get my clarity breathwork breathing, if that's helpful to you. You can get it at clarity-breathwork.com. And it's free. You can just download it there. And forgiving with love. Yeah. And one of the things I learned through my breathwork training and experience is that in the end, we really need to forgive ourselves in order to be able to let go of the past. Because there's very often something that's running along inside of there that is like, I should have known better. If I had done it differently, if I had understood this, if I had just made a different choice, right? There's this self-blame that's going on. And so forgiving yourself is a key part of letting go of painful experiences from the past. Yeah. Yeah. Just because a lot of times you know, we can find fault with ourselves so easily, and it's often not accurate, but we need to forgive. And a lot of times if you just say, I forgive myself for not knowing any better. I forgive myself for making that choice. I forgive myself for not reaching out to get support during that time. I forgive myself for being so afraid that I just withdrew and didn't, you know, ask for help, like whatever it is, but just like forgiving yourself for however you responded in the situation that was painful, like whatever your role in that was. Not to blame yourself, but just to realize that there can be this part that is blaming, and you want to settle that part down. Okay. Done is better than perfect. Okay. And another tendency, this is Alexander, another tendency I have is switching from one project to another. Is that part of gate 48 or a different gate? I don't enjoy writing a blog. Well, yeah, but it's a discipline. It's a discipline. You could also shoot videos if you prefer to do videos, and then put them up on YouTube if you're building a business. You know, just get yourself to shoot a video every week, or even every couple of weeks. That can be a great thing to do. Switching from one project to another could be, do you have the 34 defined in your chart, Alexander? And especially if you have the 3420, which is the manifesting generator channel, that is a multitasking gate, the 34. And so it can be fine. No, you don't have it. Okay, so it's probably not that. It probably is procrastination then. if you're not following it through to completion, it probably is procrastination. You kind of have to ask yourself that, you know, because the other thing is sometimes switching to another project is really helpful, because if you get a little bit stuck with one, moving on to another one can be really helpful, because then your brain is unlocked the issue that you had with that one, and then your creativity gets going with another one, and then when you go back to the other one, you have fresh insight. So that can actually be beneficial, but you just need to check with yourself, you know, like, are you fooling yourself, or are you being honest with yourself? Okay. Yeah, it took 7 years to finish your PhD. Yep, always more research that came up. Well, it took me 8 years to finish my PhD. Me 8 years, which is actually average for people in the humanities. Okay, Janice on Facebook says, yeah, sounds like a projector, create and then wait to be invited or recognized. The gate 44, or I think you mean like creating that environment. Well, yeah, it's a good strategy for projectors, is doing that, creating the environment for the sale. Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, it's really great when projectors can work with other people who can then be the 26. They can have that 26, they can ask for the sale. But the truth is once if somebody's on your webinar, for example, they've already said yes to hearing what you have to say. Okay, they've already said yes, I want to hear. And so if you actually invite them to work with you, you can do that as a projector. Okay, you just want to do it with the energy where you're really focused on them, rather than being focused on yourself and what you're going to get out of it. All right, dears, we are over the top of the hour. Mary, I did not get to your question. Let me just say briefly that the red numbers are your design numbers, your subconscious numbers. Those are the symbols that you see there are the planetary symbols. They're not astrological symbols. They are planetary symbols. Astrological symbols are the signs, you know, like Aries and Gemini and Capricorn, like that. So they're planetary symbols, and you can look them up on the web. You know, they're easy to find. And they're where the planets were when you were born and 88 days prior. So the black numbers are where the planets were, what gates they were in when you were born. I have this one mandala here. My printer's kind of wonky, but the gates are what go around the outside here. So it's where the planets were, what gate they were in. 88 days prior to your birth is the red numbers, and when you were born are the black numbers. So that's what those are. And ask that question again another time, and I'll be able to go into it more, but we're over time now. Thanks, Megumi. I love connecting with all of you. All right, many blessings. Much love, everyone. If you enjoy this, please invite your friends to come. share this on Facebook. Let people know that you're enjoying participating in this. I would love to have you help spread the wealth. And like I said, next time we'll do a couple more fear gates of the spleen, and then we're going to move on to type, strategy, and authority. All right. Many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.